So, holy crap, it has been an insane morning. I just woke up and the news is crazy because it turns out that Microsoft just purchased ZeniMax Media, which is the parent company for Bethesda, which means that now Microsoft owns Bethesda. This is absolutely insane news. This is mind-blowing news. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm going to get into it. I do, of course, want to remind you before I jump into all of this crazy news that I am currently pushing to cross 15,000 subscribers before the end of 2020. I am very, very close. I am less than 500 subscribers away, so as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing, then maybe consider subscribing to the channel to help me cross that milestone before the year is over. So here we are. This is it, man. Microsoft is making huge moves out here. They're gunning for PlayStation. There is no doubt. This purchase, this move is a gunning to win the next generation move, and I think it's definitely a bold move. I applaud them for it. They've purchased ZeniMax Media for over $7 billion, so they own ZeniMax, everything under that umbrella, which of course, the big notable thing here is Bethesda, which means, as far as we know, that a lot of Bethesda's biggest IPs and their biggest titles should be exclusive to the Xbox Series X and Series S going forward. It's also interesting to note that this was announced today, September 21st, which is the day before pre-orders for the Series X and Series S go live. So this was a very calculated decision to time this all perfectly, to make the announcement on this day, right before people would want to go and pre-order their Xboxes, and also obviously help people who maybe were on the fence about pre-ordering one maybe be convinced to do so, because you know, the PlayStation 5, all of that details was announced last week. We all lost our minds. Everyone was scrambling to try to get a PlayStation 5 pre-order. And obviously they sold out and it was a big to-do. And I think a lot of people might have said, you know, I got my PS5, it looks more exciting, I know about more of the games, so I'm going to wait on an Xbox. In fact, that's pretty much been my decision ever since Halo was delayed. But now that this news comes out today, maybe a lot of people who went for the PS5 last week might now also be willing to say, I gotta get an Xbox sooner than later, I gotta pre-order it tomorrow, because now I know that all these Bethesda games are going to be exclusive to it. I've got to be real with you guys. I know that amongst a certain subset of people out there, this might be seen as an unpopular opinion, but personally, I think this is great news. I think this is a really, really cool thing to see. Now, obviously, Microsoft is my least favorite of the three developers, or manufacturers, I should say, out there. You guys know Nintendo is my favorite company, my favorite console. Right behind that, I love Sony and the PlayStation brand. And below them, I like Microsoft and the Xbox. Now, I like them all, but if I was going to rank my favorites based on what their games are, Microsoft and the Xbox are on the bottom. But I still like them. I still want them to do well. I want everyone to do well. And honestly, a move like this, even though it's going to keep some of the best games in the industry, like, you know, I don't want to say prisoner, but keep them stuck to one console, I don't really see this as a bad move because I get excited about the idea of exclusive content and exclusive companies. I think for Microsoft specifically, who struggled so much last generation, it's a great move for them. I want to see them do well and make smart business decisions and have good games to help them sell better. So I have to see it as a good thing. Now, I know a lot of you people out there who maybe aren't going to buy an Xbox are saying, oh, this is terrible news because I won't get to play Doom and I'm not going to get to play the next Fallout or Elder Scrolls. And it's like, well, for you, that might be the case, but for me and many of us who buy every console and play on everything, it doesn't matter. That's part of the reason why this doesn't really hurt me personally in my game time, because I'm going to own an Xbox, so I'll get to play all of the Xbox exclusive games. I mean, that's why I'm not mad that Sony owns something like a Bloodborne or a Spider-Man. It's like, that's fine because I have PlayStation consoles. I get to play their games. You know, Nintendo, I get to play their games on their console. And so I just like to see Microsoft working hard and spending money to build their portfolio. That's what this is. This is a portfolio and a catalog booster by making this decision. Just like when they announced, whatever, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I think at E3, when they announced all those studios that they purchased, like Ninja Theory and the Coalition and the Internal studio that they made. I mean, you do this stuff to make sure that you have developers and teams and IPs that you have control over on your hardware. You know, Nintendo and Sony do this, okay? And Microsoft is just doing the same. Now, obviously, Bethesda is a huge get. I mean, this is a massive bomb drop on top of the fact, I mean, they even bought Obsidian, right? So they really are shaking up the industry by doing this. And so I know it's going to have a bigger ripple effect than like when they announced that they purchased Ninja Theory. Like, that was cool and crazy news, but it wasn't industry shattering. This is industry shattering. This is a $7 billion move for one of the biggest and most respected developers and publishers in the industry. It's insane. So obviously this is a move done to bolster pre-orders and sales for the Xbox Series X and Series S. And obviously this means that, you know, we're not going to see a game like The Elder Scrolls 6 or the next Doom on the PlayStation 5, which is absolutely insane to think about. None of us yesterday could have ever thought that we would live in a future where games like that wouldn't play on the next PlayStation, but here we are. Although, it is also worth noting that, you know, there is a chance that we still see Microsoft continue to push some of their practices where they do allow some titles to go cross-platform. In fact, I just saw a quote from Phil Spencer on Twitter right before I started recording that I guess he's already saying that they will still be considering some cross-gen games on a case-by-case basis going forward. Obviously, we think of games like the 2 Ori games, and we think of a game like Cuphead, which Microsoft has allowed to play on the Nintendo Switch. We think of Banjo-Kazooie, which is Rare's IP that Microsoft also owns. They allowed Banjo-Kazooie to go into Smash Brothers. So we've been seeing Microsoft specifically be really great about breaking down some of the barriers of exclusivity between them and the other two guys in the industry. I think it's very cool to see, even though I'm somebody who stands by the concept of exclusive content, which is why I'm not mad that Microsoft is just adding more exclusive content to their library. I still also appreciate the fact that they've been willing to let some of these games go elsewhere. I think that Wasteland 3 might be another title that falls into that same category. I have to double check if Microsoft, you know, owns that or published that. I can't remember. I think so, though, and I think that they're also allowing that, like on the Nintendo Switch, for example. So either way, I do still appreciate that they're allowing this stuff to happen. So when it comes to some of the bigger games in the future, like a Fallout or a Doom, are these going to be one of the case-by-case titles where they allow them to go to other consoles? And I think that Microsoft will be in a really tricky situation there, because I think that you could see an advantage to either decision. If they allow something like Doom or Fallout to go to the other consoles, the advantage is potentially you could have double or triple the sales of that software, right? So that becomes a huge win monetarily, because this one game isn't going to be stuck to just one platform to sell. It can sell on more than one platform. Obviously, PC is wrapped into this as well, and they can make all the money on that title, so that's great. However, the advantage of not doing that is by making some of the biggest games like a Doom and an Elder Scrolls exclusive to your device. That means more people have to purchase your device, and people see more value in your machine over the competition. So it becomes like a branding thing at that point. You know, Nintendo could make $1 trillion if they allowed the next Mario or the next Zelda to be played on PlayStation and Xbox. But what that does is it devalues the Nintendo brand and the Switch console family, because suddenly a game as awesome and as popular as a Mario and a Zelda doesn't have to be played on your Nintendo machine. I can play it on my PlayStation 5 that I already own, so I don't have to buy Nintendo's device. So the brand kind of suffers, right? But again, you're going to get triple the sales of that one title. So it is a give and take. I mean, I'm not a business person. I don't run these companies. I don't make these billion-dollar decisions. But I would think that, to me, the more valuable thing is the brand. And so I would think the more valuable choice would be, the smarter choice would be, to keep your biggest titles exclusive to your machine. Smaller things like an Ori and a Cuphead, obviously, easier to let those things go out and play on the other machines and make more sales for those little indie studios that are making those games, and that's really great. But your big players, your Doom and your Elder Scrolls, you know, the examples I keep using in this video, I think there's probably more of a business reason to keep them exclusive to the Xbox. So I don't know, something tells me that we won't see those playing ball with Sony or even Nintendo. I will say, last point here, obviously something else that we maybe think of when we see this move today by Microsoft is how this might be another step into Microsoft turning Xbox into more of like a ubiquitous platform. and less than like an exclusive hardware manufacturer and a hardware player in the game industry, right? Because, discussions about Game Pass being available on other devices, some of their smaller games available on other consoles, and all that stuff that we've talked about, what they're doing with Project X Cloud, and now they're buying something as big as Bethesda. It's like, okay, is this just, part of their decision to eventually stop making Xbox consoles and become an Xbox platform that you play on different devices? And I will say that I think that there could be something to that, but I don't think that there's anything to that right now. I think that we're in a situation where potentially the Xbox Series X kind of family here that's about to launch this year might be, keyword is might be their last hardware, their last Xbox console. And so maybe the next 5 to 7 years or so is going to be the last chunk of time that Microsoft has a machine on the market. They fight for exclusivity. They push the Xbox as a piece of hardware as well as a platform. And once it's time to move on from this next generation of machines, maybe that's where we see Microsoft say, we're done making Xboxes, and now we're just going to become available as an Xbox Game Pass service on your PCs, your laptops, and your cell phones, your Nintendo consoles, and your Sony consoles. And that's what they do. And at that point, maybe that's when all of the biggest Bethesda IPs become available on multiple different devices. I really tend to think that during the life of the Xbox Series X, we're not going to see the Dooms and the Elder Scrolls of the world go cross-platform. But maybe once the Series X is over, and if Microsoft decides to become a platform and not a console, then we might see the floodgates open, and that's when we might see Bethesda's biggest games and Rare's and Obsidian's and Ninja Theory's and all that stuff finally just be available everywhere as basically third-party content. I think that might be the future. But again, I don't think that that's the immediate future. I don't think that's how the Series X generation is going to play out. And so because of that, I don't think the biggest games from Bethesda are going to be available on Sony or Nintendo. I just don't think so. We're going to play these only on our Series X and only on our PCs. So that's the news, man. That's the crazy bomb drop that happened today that we all woke up to. I certainly woke up to it here on the West Coast, man. I woke up at like 8:30, which is later than I normally wake up, actually. I slept in. And I looked at my phone, and it was like, holy crap, Microsoft Bethesda ZeniMax, it's nuts. And I'm like, what am I reading here? And I knew I immediately had to turn on a camera and make this video. So these are my thoughts and opinions about this crazy move. I'm pretty excited about it, and I want to hear what you guys think. Are you excited? Are you angry? Are you in the middle? Do you not even care? Whatever you think, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.